the unsung heroes of the cholera epidemic in London. In the middle of the 19th century, London was the most powerful city in the world and one of the most dangerous places to live. It was a city of factories and ambition, but also of overflowing cesspools, polluted water, and tightly packed streets. When cholera arrived, it did not creep quietly. It struck with terrifying speed. A person could wake up healthy and be dead by nightfall. Families watched loved ones collapse from violent vomiting and dehydration. Entire neighborhoods were emptied in days. Fear spread faster than understanding because no one truly knew what caused the disease. What ultimately saved London was not a single hero or miracle cure. It was a chain of people: doctors, engineers, clergy, nurses, laborers, and even politicians whose combined actions reshaped how the modern world understands public health. Many of them never intended to become heroes at all. A city choking on the wrong idea. At the time, most medical authorities believed in the miasma theory, the idea that diseases like cholera spread through foul-smelling air. If a place smelled bad, it was considered dangerous. If it smelled clean, it was thought to be safe. This belief shaped everything. Streets were scrubbed to remove odors. Perfumes were burned. Windows were sealed shut to keep the bad air out. None of it stopped cholera. Ironically, miasma believers were not useless. Because they hated smells, they pushed for cleaner streets and waste removal. They were doing the right thing, but for the wrong reason. What they could not see was that the true danger was invisible. Flowing silently through the water people drank every day. Turning death into evidence. One man began to suspect the truth. John Snow, a quiet and methodical physician, believed cholera was spread through contaminated water. More specifically, he believed it traveled through what we now call the fecal-oral route, human waste finding its way back into drinking water. To Victorian society, this idea was horrifying. It suggested that the city was, in a sense, poisoning itself. During the deadly 1854 outbreak in Soho, Snow did something revolutionary. He took lists of the dead and transformed them into a visual argument. On a street map, he marked each cholera death with a short black bar. When the map was finished, the pattern was undeniable. Deaths clustered tightly around a single water source, the Broad Street pump. Snow wasn't just practicing medicine, he was inventing data visualization. For the first time, numbers told a story that anyone could understand. He also searched for exceptions. Nearby brewery workers who drank only beer, made from boiled water and used their own private well, were largely untouched by the disease. This accidental control group strengthened his case even further. Action before belief. When Snow presented his findings to local officials, he did not win them over scientifically. The Board of Governors was still unconvinced that water, not air, was the cause of cholera. But people were dying rapidly. The decision to remove the pump handle was made not because officials believed Snow was right, but because they had run out of alternatives. It was a desperate experiment, not a victory of persuasion. And yet, once the handle was removed, new cholera cases dropped almost immediately. The pump handle became a quiet symbol of an important truth. Sometimes you don't need to win the argument to save lives. You just need to take action before certainty arrives. The curate who found the first thread. Snow's map showed where cholera was spreading. Another man helped explain how it began. Henry Whitehead, a local church curate, knew the neighborhood far better than any government doctor. At first, Whitehead believed Snow was wrong. He trusted the miasma theory like most people did. But Whitehead listened. Because families trusted him, they spoke honestly. Through careful conversations, he identified what we now call the index case, a baby known as Baby Lewis, who lived at 40 Broad Street. The child had suffered from severe diarrhea. The mother, Sarah Lewis, washed the soiled cloths and emptied the water into a cesspool, just feet from the pump well. When authorities later dug up the area, at Whitehead's insistence, they discovered the brick lining of the cesspool was badly decayed. Contaminated liquid was visibly leaking into the well water. The story was deeply human. Sarah Lewis was not just a data point. Shortly after her baby's death, she also lost her husband to cholera. What science labeled an index case was, in reality, a family tragedy. Together, Snow and Whitehead proved that science and community trust were strongest when they worked side by side. The workers who handled the filth. Before London had sewers, it relied on an entire class of invisible workers, known as night soil men. They arrived after dark to manually empty cesspools by hand. The waste was sold as fertilizer to farmers. It was brutal, dangerous labor, but it kept the city functioning. Then global economics intervened. Cheap guano imported from South America flooded the fertilizer market. The value of London's waste collapsed. Night soil collection slowed. Cesspools overflowed. Cholera followed. The night soil men were not villains. Their disappearance exposed a harsh truth. A city of millions could no longer depend on private manual waste removal. London needed a system, not a patchwork of labor. When smell forced power to act. For years, reformers begged Parliament to fund proper sanitation, warning that disease would devastate the poor. Their pleas were ignored. Then came the summer of 1858. The River Thames became so polluted that the stench drifted into the House of Commons itself. Curtains were soaked in chloride of lime just so lawmakers could breathe. Suddenly, the crisis could not be ignored. The irony was striking. It was not the suffering of the poor that unlocked political action. It was the discomfort of those in power. A newspaper wrote at the time, "It was a case of life or death. The river was a Stygian pool." Within weeks, funding was approved. Surgery on a living city. The man chosen to fix London was Joseph Bazalgette. His task was enormous. He did not simply build pipes, he performed surgery on a living city. Bazalgette designed massive intercepting sewers that used gravity to pull waste away from drinking water sources. To power them, he built monumental pumping stations, including the stunning Abbey Mills pumping station, often described as a cathedral of sewage. He insisted on using Portland cement, a new and expensive material far stronger than traditional mortar. Critics complained about the cost. Bazalgette ignored them. That decision is why London sewers still function more than 170 years later. Even more remarkably, when engineers calculated how large the pipes needed to be, Bazalgette doubled the size. He understood that the population would grow and famously believed, in effect, that the city would only get one chance to do this right. Above ground, his work reshaped London's skyline. Through the construction of the Victoria, Chelsea, and Albert embankments, Bazalgette narrowed the Thames and reclaimed over 50 acres of land. Inside these embankments ran not just sewers, but gas lines, and eventually the district line of the London Underground. It was the world's first true multi-utility infrastructure project. Quiet courage in the wards. While engineers worked underground, nurses fought cholera face to face. Religious nursing orders staffed overcrowded cholera wards filled with fear and suffering. They practiced hygiene before germs were understood. Clean sheets, fresh water, constant care. Many risked their own lives daily. Their compassion reduced death rates long before science could explain why. They did not appear on maps or in Parliament, but they saved lives all the same. A legacy beneath our feet. By the late 19th century, cholera had vanished from London. Clean water, sanitation, data-driven thinking, and public responsibility had won. Today, Broad Street is known as Broadwick Street. A pub called the John Snow stands nearby, and a small pink granite stone marks where the pump once stood. People pass it every day, often without noticing. But beneath their feet lies the legacy of unsung heroes, people who listened carefully, acted bravely, and built systems that outlasted them. Their story reminds us that progress is rarely loud. Sometimes it is measured in pipes, maps, conversations, and the courage to act before certainty. And sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who never expected to be remembered, only to make the city livable for those who came next.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Cesspool. Definition: a cesspool is a deep hole in the ground, used to collect human waste and dirty water from toilets and houses. Example: the old house had a cesspool in the yard, where all the wastewater went. 2. Nightfall. Definition: nightfall is the time when the sun goes down, and it starts to become dark. Example: by nightfall the streets were quiet and empty. 3. Dehydration. Definition: dehydration is a condition that happens when the body loses too much water and does not have enough fluids to stay healthy. Example: the patient became weak because dehydration made his body lose too much water. 4. Miasma theory. Definition: miasma theory was the old belief that diseases spread through bad or dirty air. Example: many doctors believed in miasma theory and thought the smell of the river caused cholera. 5. Fecal oral route. Definition: the fecal oral route is a way disease spreads when waste from the body gets into food or water and then enters another person's mouth. Example: cholera spreads through the fecal oral route when people drink contaminated water. 6. Clustered. Definition: clustered means gathered closely together in one place. Example: the houses were clustered around the village well. 7. Alternative. Definition: an alternative is another choice or different option. Example: the city had no alternative but to fix the broken water system. 8. Curate. Definition: a curate is a church worker or assistant priest who helps take care of a local church community. Example: the curate visited sick families in the neighborhood. 9. Index case. Definition: an index case is the first known person who brings a disease into a group or starts an outbreak. Example: doctors studied the index case to understand how the illness began. 10. A data point. Definition: a data point is one single piece of information used in a study or research. Example: each death on the map was one data point. 11. Guano. Definition: guano is dried bird waste that is used as fertilizer to help plants grow. Example: farmers bought guano to make their crops stronger. 12. Sanitation. Definition: sanitation means keeping places clean and managing waste properly to protect people's health. Example: good sanitation helps prevent the spread of disease. 13. Stench. Definition: a stench is a very strong and unpleasant smell. Example: the stench from the polluted river made people cover their noses. 14. A Stygian pool. Definition: a Stygian pool is a very dark, dirty, and frightening body of water. The word Stygian means extremely dark and unpleasant. Example: the newspaper described the river as a Stygian pool filled with waste. 15. Orders in the context of religious groups. Definition: orders are organized groups of people in a religious community who live and work together to serve others. Example: the nursing orders cared for patients during the epidemic. 16. Hygiene. Definition: hygiene means keeping yourself and your surroundings clean to stay healthy and prevent disease. Example: washing your hands regularly is an important part of good hygiene.
Comprehension questions. 1. What made cholera such a terrifying disease in 19th century London? Answer: cholera struck very quickly and could kill a healthy person within hours or a single day, often causing violent vomiting, dehydration, and sudden death. 2. What theory did most doctors believe explained the spread of cholera at the time? Answer: most doctors believed in the miasma theory, which claimed that diseases spread through foul or bad-smelling air. 3. Why was the miasma theory both helpful and harmful? Answer: it was harmful because it misunderstood the real cause of cholera, but helpful because it encouraged cleaning streets and removing waste, which accidentally reduced disease. 4. What was John Snow's main belief about how cholera spread? Answer: John Snow believed cholera spread through contaminated water, specifically through the fecal-oral route. 5. How did John Snow's map change the way people understood the outbreak? Answer: his map visually showed that cholera deaths clustered around the Broad Street pump, turning lists of data into clear visual evidence. 6. Why is John Snow considered a pioneer of epidemiology? Answer: He used data, mapping, comparison groups, and patterns to track disease spread, laying the foundation for modern epidemiology. 7. What was the significance of the brewery workers near Broad Street? Answer: they did not get sick because they drank beer made with boiled water and used a private well, serving as a control group that supported Snow's theory. 8. Why was the Broad Street pump handle removed, even though officials were unconvinced? Answer: officials removed it as a desperate last resort experiment because people were dying rapidly, not because they fully believed Snow's explanation. 9. What lesson does the pump handle decision teach about public health? Answer: it shows that saving lives sometimes requires action before full understanding or agreement is reached. 10. Who was Henry Whitehead, and why was his role important? Answer: Henry Whitehead was a local church curate, whose trust within the community allowed him to gather honest information that helped identify the outbreak's origin. 11. Who was the index case, and why is this story important? Answer: the index case was Baby Lewis, whose illness and contaminated waste helped start the outbreak. The story reminds us that statistics represent real human tragedies. 12. What was discovered when the cesspool near Broad Street was excavated? Answer: the brick lining was badly decayed, allowing contaminated waste to leak directly into the well water. 13. Who were the Knights oilmen, and what role did they play in the crisis? Answer: Knights oilmen manually emptied cesspools. Their economic displacement showed that London could no longer rely on private waste removal systems. 14. How did global economics contribute to London's sanitation failure? Answer: cheap imported guano reduced the value of human waste, causing cesspool collection to decline and sanitation conditions to worsen. 15. What was the Great Stink of 1858, and why was it a turning point? Answer: it was a period when the Thames smelled so badly that it reached Parliament, forcing politicians to finally fund sanitation reforms. 16. Why is Joseph Bazalgette considered an unsung hero? Answer: he redesigned London's sewer system with long-term vision and durability, preventing future epidemics and shaping modern infrastructure. 17. What made Bazalgette's engineering decisions especially forward-thinking? Answer: he used Portland cement and doubled pipe sizes to prepare for future population growth, ensuring the system would last. 18. What was unique about the Thames embankments Bazalgette built? Answer: they combined sewers, gas lines, and underground railways into a single structure, making them the world's first multi-utility infrastructure project. 19. How did nurses contribute to reducing cholera deaths? Answer: they practiced hygiene, clean bedding, hydration, and compassionate care before the science of germs was understood. 20. What is the main message of the article about progress and heroism? Answer: real progress comes from quiet, collective effort, often by people who never expect recognition but build systems that protect future generations.